We'll now call our commission meeting of March the 12th at 3 p.m. to order. We welcome everyone here, and we're honored to have Sergeant Denton, representing Metro Police Department, back with us today. If you are not satisfied with a decision made by the Traffic and Parking Commission, you may appeal the decision by filing for a writ of certiorari with the Davidson County Chancery Circuit Court. Your appeal must be filed within 60 days of the date of the entry of the Commission's decision. We advise that you seek your own independent legal advice to ensure that your appeal is filed in a timely manner and that all procedural requirements have been met. Can I have approval of today's agenda?
So moved.
I second.
Moved and second. All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. So approved. Need approval of the minutes of the last meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. So approved. Today we have a request on our, there's no old business. On our appeals, we have a request to appeal the installation of permit parking on both sides of Barton Avenue from 24th Avenue South to 26th Avenue South from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. Monday through Friday, and 1 hour non-permit parking on both sides of 25th Avenue South from Fairfax Avenue to Barton Avenue from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. Monday through Friday, and 1 hour non-permit parking. This was deferred from our November 2011 meeting. We welcome each of you here, and we'll ask that when you speak, if you will go to the lectern on your left and my right, and we'll give you all the time you need, as long as you don't exceed 3 minutes. So also ask that anyone's welcome to speak, but try not to repeat yourself. If someone has already made some point, then try to defer from repeating that, because we have a long agenda today. So who would like to? I tell you, first of all, I'm going to call on Diane to give us a report. Ms. Marshall.
The permit parking was approved by the Traffic and Parking Commission in September 2011. The justification behind the permit parking was we received a petition signed by over 75% of the residents. Since the implementation of the restriction, the nearby Martin Learning Center has expressed concerns with the legislation. Representatives from the Martin Learning Center stated that having available on-street parking is necessary for the attendance of the center. The removal of the restriction was requested in fall 2011. Public Works staff recommended that the parking restrictions remain in place, therefore resulting in the appeal heard at the November 2011 meeting. At that meeting, it was decided that we would rehear the case within 6 months of the original approval, and that is the reason for the discussion today on this.
Okay. We have Councilperson Berkeley Allen with us. Okay. Would you like to come forward and make your presentation? You'll have a button there. Be sure the red mic is on.
Speak? Yes.
That's it. Thank you.
Berkeley Allen, councilperson for the 18th District, and I lived at the old teacher center, so I've been through this, having people parking on my street and blocking driveways, and I know what a nuisance that can be, and I appreciate the neighbors taking the initiative to solve their problem, and I appreciate the need for teachers and parents to have a place to park near our educational facilities. I believe that this group, many of these people have met together and talked about specifically what the issues are. The school and the teacher center have worked very creatively to try to come up with more spaces close to their facilities that they could use so that this is not an issue every single day. I think nonetheless it does continue to be an ongoing problem, and there's some pictures that show some pretty tight parking along the streets. So I understand the neighbors' frustration. And I understand where the school board is coming from, trying to provide adequate parking. I believe that there are other solutions we can come up with for all day long parking for the Martin Center, and to me that is not a solution by taking the parking back on Barton, and I want to be sure that that's clear to the neighbors, that that's not what I'm advocating for. part of the discussion that we had with both the Teacher Center and Aiken School, which is also on this block, was simply the issue of the specifics of the residential permit parking. Currently restrict parking to 1 hour, and I would suggest that rather than repealing the parking, perhaps stretching that 1 hour to 2 hours at least opens it up more for Aiken parents, so that if other spots are taken for Martin Development Center, then the Aiken parents at least can have some spots where they can come in for an hour and a half and utilize that space. So that is to say, I would hope that perhaps there's a little bit of wiggle room for a little bit of compromise, and I hope that we can continue to work with the school system to find parking for them that is not putting a burden on the neighbors. Thank you very much for your time.
Okay. Thank you.
He needs to sign in.
If you would, have you signed the sign-in sheet here? Okay, anyone who speaks, please sign the sign-in sheet on the table in front of you. Anyone else wish to speak? Okay.
Good afternoon. I'm Meredith Libby, and I work for the school district, and I also live on Fairfax Avenue, so I'm very well aware of the issues involving this, and I want to thank Council Lady Allen for bringing us together for a meeting on this, which was following the Commission's suggestion at the last meeting. And I think the nature of compromise is you never quite get what you want, and I think that's true with the 2 hours. It's certainly not as open as we would prefer. Speaking here on behalf of the school district, I appreciate that it's also not exactly what the neighbors would prefer, but we do appreciate Council Lady Allen's consideration and recommendation for 2 hours, and we therefore ask that this Commission follow her recommendation and change that to 2-hour parking. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? Well, it's 1 hour now.
Mr. Chairman, my name's Gary Shockley. I live at 2413 Fairfax Avenue on the corner of Fairfax and 25th. So my property immediately abuts what we're talking about here. I'd like to offer a brief, certainly less than 3-minute historical perspective on this issue. I'll note that the people you're going to hear from here are primarily Aiken or former Aiken Elementary parents. We know many parents who still have children there. I've not received a single complaint from an Aiken parent since this went into effect back in September. The Martin Center, it was built in 2007 and 2008. Part of the problem is the zoning administrator's interpretation exempted that facility from application of the normal parking standards. It did not have to meet the standards that any other business in this city would have to meet to bring up to 200 people per day into our neighborhood. That's the root cause of this problem. While the neighbors were discussing that with the city, we were told that the city would install 36 new spaces at Harris Hillman. They've chosen not to do that. That has aggravated the problem as well. As the Commission knows, with the support of the neighborhood and Councilperson Lalonde, there were 24 spots on 24th Avenue made available, reserved for the Teacher Training Center to assist them with their problem. This group of neighbors and others met with Councilmember Lalonde back in January of 2011. Some 14 months ago, began the petition process. There was, as Ms. Marshall noted, virtually unanimous support in the neighborhood. I personally was here in September, even though it was on the consent agenda. Got to hear the public hearing on the food truck ordinance. That was educational for me. There was no opposition. There were no questions at that time. Others were back here 3 months ago and are here for a third time today. I will say, since this went into effect, I no longer see the regulars that I saw each and every day in the mornings when I got up at 6 o'clock, parking there to walk to work at Vanderbilt. So it has had some beneficial effect. We still do see teachers driving through the neighborhood searching for parking spaces at a time when children are going to and from school, when people are trying to go to and from work on 25th Avenue in Barton. We believe that the grounds that supported the original petition that the commission approved still apply here, that the conditions have not changed, and Mr. Nearhouse will show you some photographs that will demonstrate that, we believe. The proposal, as I understand it, before the commission is one to repeal the permit parking, not change it to 2 hour, but to repeal it. And we respectfully request that the commission deny that request and stand by the decision you made back in September. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Okay. Anyone else? We welcome anyone who wishes to speak.
May I?
Sure.
Hi, my name is Keisha Ray, and I am the Executive Director for Learning Technology, and I manage the Martin Center. And I inherited the Martin Center 2 years ago from my predecessor. And since that time, we have, I hope the neighborhood feels, we've taken a much more proactive approach at working with the neighborhood and also the schools that are located on that square block, Harris Hillman, Aiken, and Martin, have worked more diligently at coordinating, collaborating our efforts in partnering with the neighborhood. Part of our challenge is that Aiken has experienced an increase in staff and faculty. Their staff are having to park in the Martin Center parking lot, which is making less spaces available, pushing the, on average, 200 teachers a day participating in training to alternative parking. But we have put some, I guess, protocol in place. We've hired a security guard that will monitor the parking and make sure that, especially when school is arriving and dismissing, that the teachers aren't circling and endangering children. We've allocated special spaces for carpooling parents, and we have regular meetings with one another and neighborhood members to try to resolve the issue. We realize, I agree, when the building was configured, parking was, it's just not what it needs to be for that space. But we inherited that, and we're trying to work out these issues. We would prefer 4-hour parking, but we respect the needs of the community and we'll make 2-hour parking work. So, thank you.
Okay. Thank you. You came in a little late. Be sure and sign the register here in front. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Tim Nearhouse. I live at 2416 Barton Avenue, and we had some photographs taken on one of the days where there was the teacher training center was in use for a larger meeting. That we don't really know what days these come, but we could tell it was one of those days based on all the spots being taken around the neighborhood. I don't know if we can cue those up.
Yes, we have.
Okay, good. So this is looking down at Aiken School from, I guess you're on 25th Avenue South, and Fairfax would be in front of you, and Barton would be behind you. So you can see that they're lined up all up and down the street to the alleys. And there's a shot here where a car trying to get through. You can see there's barely any room to even squeeze through. So 2 cars clearly can't come by. And then there's a car parked on the Martin Center property itself, just parked up on the front lawn where there's clearly no parking allowed. And you can see them just lined up. So you can't even see the driveways. There's so little room where the cars are parked right up to the hubs of the driveway. It's very hard to pull out. And then you can imagine school letting out and the parents trying to park to pick up their kids. It's impossible. So rather than hurt the Aiken parents, it helps the Aiken parents to have the permit parking so they're not taking all these spots in the afternoon. I've got a letter from the Aiken PTO chairperson, PTO president, Elizabeth Frine, that I'd like to read out loud. She couldn't be here today. Dear Zoning Commission, I have never received negative feedback from Aiken parents or neighbors regarding the 1-hour parking limitations on Barton and 25th Avenues. Recently, I did get positive feedback from an Aiken parent who stated that before the restriction, Aiken parents had no place to park for school dismissed at 3 p.m. When the Martin Center hosted large training days, cars filled the streets long past 2:45 p.m. when parents began arriving for dismissal. Now the streets remain available for parents to pick up their children. Sincerely, Elizabeth Frine, Aiken PTO President, 2011-2012. With regard to the 1-hour versus 2-hour, sort of compromise. We discussed this at the meeting as a group. We all got together, and I think the problem was, and Diane Marshall probably said it best, was that it's hard enough to enforce the 1 hour, and the 2 hour means the officer would have to write the license plate number down, leave, and come back. The chances of that all working out in a timely manner and cars being ticketed, towed, et cetera, are slim and none. There's no precedent for there to be 2 hour permit parking in any of the residential areas. It's all 1 hour everywhere I've ever seen it. And quite frankly, the enforcement on the 1 hour right now is not great, especially on the big turnout days. So really, you have the people that see the sign and move on, and the people that see the sign and don't care from an enforcement perspective. And all I can say is before Martin was there, Martin Training Center, there was never a problem with Aiken parents, Aiken teachers, volunteers, or anybody else. This is purely a Martin Development Center problem. We knew it was going to happen. We warned them about it before they built it. There was litigation over it, and they've swarmed the streets and parked there. And we simply took the next step we were told by our council person to take, Ms. Lalonde, which was to go for permit parking. She suggested the 1 hour since it was close to Aiken. We agreed to that, and we ran with it and followed all the procedures. So I'd ask that you deny their request to appeal it.
Okay, thank you, sir.
I'm Caroline Shockley, and I live at 2413 Fairfax Avenue, and I was one of the 2 neighbors who started the petition process because we had just become so frustrated in our neighborhood. We felt like when we talked to other neighbors and other places that had done permit parking, it was recommended to us that we go with just have permit parking only, not allow the 1 hour. And we felt like we made a great concession because we did not want this to be a burden on the Aiken parents for pickup and drop off and so forth. So we went with the 1 hour. As far as the Martin Professional Development Center goes, when we were in talks with them, when this was all happening in 2007 before they opened, you have heard that they said that they would put in the 36 parking places at Harris Hillman. We gave them the designated parking places on 24th. We were told that that was all that they would need, that they would not be parking on the streets. We also were told that there would be an average of 150 teachers being trained. Now we're hearing today 200, and there's days where there's many more. The last I checked, Aiken Elementary is a Metro Nashville Public School, just like Martin Professional Development Center is part of Metro Nashville Public Schools. I would think if you're part of the same entity that you would coordinate your parking if you're all on the same location. It's great that Aiken's grown, but you've got to have places for them. It's great that more teachers are being trained, but you got to have a place to park them. We were told it would not be in our neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Skip Hyman. I'm also a landowner and neighbor of the Martin Training Center. I just want to point out that their Metro or the Martin Center is seeking what they're calling a compromise here, but really the situation as it currently stands is itself the result of a compromise, because this, when they announced the plans for the teacher training center, and even as late as when construction began, it was zoned for K through 6 education. And one of the many differences between kindergartners through 6th graders and adults, of course, is that the school children do not drive. So they built the center really with no understanding or plan of how they were going to, where they were going to park everyone. And it was a zoning violation. So as a result, they reached a compromise with, and I heard the representatives from the Martin Center saying that they inherited the situation, and I'm sure that's true. But their predecessors built it, and they're the ones who reached the agreement with the neighborhood, which resulted in a specific special purpose ordinance that was passed for the property that were described to save a green space behind it and to address these parking issues. And so this whole situation, actually, as it currently stands, is the result of a compromise, and now they're coming back and asking for more because the fact is it was a violation when they came in, and they're really fortunate to be able to have any kind of solution at all. And I would also like to add that, the enforcement of a violation, of a zoning violation, depends upon the enforcement by the adjacent landowners. And I don't mean that just figuratively. it is built into the regulations that say you must be an affected landowner in order to have standing to bring this. So if the commission were to allow a compromise or to repeal the permit parking, the effect would be to say that not only that a violation of a zoning ordinance cannot be enforced by anyone except the few who are affected by it. And if those few people who are affected by it do in fact enforce a zoning violation, the impact of it in this case would be pushed back and borne on the landowners themselves who are required to bring the enforcement action. And clearly that is not what contemplated by a regulation that would be rewarding those who violate the zoning ordinances. So I request that you deny their petition to repeal the parking permits.
Okay, thank you, sir. Anyone else? We welcome your comments. It's your meeting, and we're here to help. No more comments? Yes.
Hi, my name's Betsy Heineman, and I live at 2414 Barton Avenue. I'm not going to repeat anything that's been stated, but I didn't hear anyone mention the fact that when all of these cars are lined up on all of these streets, as they are whenever the teacher training center is in session, it is nearly impossible for any emergency vehicles to get through. It's impossible for one car to really get through. Not only do we have Harris Hillman and Aiken and the Ronald McDonald House, we also have St. Bernard Academy. It's a very densely populated urban area, and it is already very dangerous just for two cars to try to pass on these streets. So I wanted to add that comment into the record about emergency vehicles.
Okay, thank you very much. Did you sign the register?
Yes.
Okay, good. Anyone else? If we have no other speakers, we'll close the public hearing and ask the, okay, I'm sorry. We'll open it back up for you.
Hi, my name is Jacqueline Goffou. I live on 2410 Barton, right across from 25th Avenue. And we have seen times where the school bus could not go through.
Could you pull your mic down just a little bit?
Okay. We have seen times when the school bus could not go through, rather in front of 25th and Barton Avenue. The school bus could not turn because there were cars on either way. You know, on all four corners there were cars, so the school bus could not go through. So I don't think this is a situation that's possible in our neighborhood.
Okay.
And especially for the schools.
Okay. Anyone else? If there is no one, we'll close our public hearing and open it up for the commissioners and staff to make any comments and questions. Okay, Commissioner?
Question to legal counsel. What is the actual motion on the table to repeal the permit parking that we actually approved in September? Is that correct?
Well, I haven't seen the application. I haven't seen the application, but I believe they just requested to appeal the permit. And maybe staff can speak to exactly what it says.
My question is who is appealing, because having gone through the process of permit parking street where I live, my understanding of the process is that it's a citizens or residents on the street have to apply for permit parking and get it approved. So I would think that to have it unapproved or repealed, it would take a resident on the street to appeal that and come up with a petition to come back. And to date, you know, we've had 2 hearings on this, and I've yet to see a resident in the area affected by this make a request. Instead, we have an institution making a request. And to my knowledge, I don't think an institution can make this request, but I could be mistaken. Looking for some clarification.
Well, to be fair, I believe the lady that represents the school lives in the neighborhood, right? So I guess, just to be fair, I guess she would be one person.
Well, I think the official terminology may be incorrect. I think this is a rescind of a previously approved piece of legislation. So 6 months ago, the commission approved installation of permit parking on, go back one slide, Corby. On these streets you see here, the ones we've been showing with the yellow writing, go down, Corby. That is not what we're here to talk about. This is for information only. On the south side of Fairfax is where we're talking about. Okay, go to the green, Corby. And so 6 months ago, the commission approved permit parking only in this area. We had on 25th and on Barton. Now, we had a request to rescind, if you want to use that term, if that's more applicable, that approval and remove those signs. And that request was made by the Learning Center. And I think that, if I'm correct, Jenny, help me out, but I believe anyone can make a request to this commission. I don't think there has to be a person from the neighborhood or whatever, just like a stop sign. Okay. Anybody could get that request in. So we're here to probably rescind the original and then take a whole new approval if you were to go with the 2-hour idea. I don't know if we could modify it with the rescission on the table or not. That would be up to legal. But that's what we're looking at. Right now, you've approved permit parking only on these 2 streets. The school would like to see it otherwise. The residents want to see it stay the same or maybe go to 2, and that's where we are today.
I think the residents are saying keep it at 1 hour, correct? And keep the parking permit, the residential parking permit in. Because I just wanted to clarify on that. But on the appeal, they both go together, right, Chip?
I'm sorry?
They both go together, the permit and the 1 hour, it goes together? I mean...
Yes. And let me clarify on this emergency vehicle thing. By code, you have to leave 12 feet of travel path for emergency vehicles. If somebody's violating that, it's not really signs that can take care of that. This is somebody just parking poorly. So if you have an issue where if there's not 12 feet for an emergency vehicle or passenger car to get through, call the right people and get that taken care of. But that's not a signage or a commission item, really. That's just people parking poorly.
Have there been many permits issued?
In that particular area, I think we've issued about 30 to 40 permits, and we've only received 1 complaint from a resident that did not understand the permit parking program, and we explained that to him, and he's okay with it.
How much are the permits and how long are they for?
$10 annual fee.
So all of the permits have been issued to the residents in the area?
That is correct.
Okay. The only one can purchase the permit is the resident.
They have to provide proof of residency in order to get a permit.
Okay.
If a resident has a permit, is it possible that she can't park in front of their home because spaces are taken?
If it is occupied
Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes. Yes, if it's occupied by other vehicles other than permit parkers beyond the 1 hour limit, then yes, there is a restriction from them to be able to park.
Yeah,
how is it?
In theory, there could be no room for permit parking because of the 1 hour allowance we're giving them.
And how have things improved since the September regulations have gone into place? Are you guys able to, did the regulation accomplish what you guys wanted, essentially? I guess is what I'm trying to understand. Yeah, sure. Yeah.
I think it's improved on all the days except for the major event days where they're flooded with hundreds of people attending. Other than that, yeah, it's a lot better, if anybody disagrees with that.
It sounds like perhaps you had people from outside the area and outside the Martin Learning Center parking there before. Is that correct?
Well, I think it was just, yes, there was also, you'd have Vanderbilt folks there all day long. And then, of course, on the Martin events, they were there all day long. But even on the smaller Martin events, where you're not going around and around looking for a spot, those are pretty close to the Martin Center. So they just grab them real quick and walk in, because it's a pretty good spot for the Martin Center on 25th.
Are you guys still experiencing some violators in the neighborhood of the parking?
Every day there's a couple that don't care and park there on 25th. I'm talking about now mainly because that's the real problem spot, because it's right around the corner. But on the days where there's a big event, and I don't know how to define those, if there's a certain type of event, they would probably know what those days are. It was when we took the picture, that was one of those days. And on the big days, no, they're still lined up on 25th, and you cannot park in front of your house on the big days. And I don't think they're going to care about 1 hour, 2 hour, or anything. I think they're just trying to find a spot and get into that center.
So, Chip, on that question, I guess, is it up to the residents to contact law enforcement to patrol that area once they identify vehicles in violation, or is there a constant rotation that maybe the officer on duty may perhaps go through and identify maybe that some people are still violating that regulation?
Well, because of all this, it's part of our rotation. Now, that's interpretive that we have 3 people to cover the county, so that rotation is few and far between. These guys help us out a lot more than our patrolmen do, so they're on call too. But yes, it's up to enforcement. We could put any prohibition in the world out there. It comes down to enforcement.
And I think on the 1 to 2 hour, that's what Ms. Marshall was saying, is they can't even get back out there for 4 hours. So if they say, okay, take your plate down, come back 4 hours later, then it's a 4 hour permit parking, not a 2 hour.
I have a question. That is, when residential permit parking's been implemented around Belmont University, the universities actually notify their students to say there's permit parking and you should not park on those streets. Has the school notified your potential that there's permit parking?
Yes, we notify them. We have a website, we have an app that they can look at every day that gives them a snapshot of the parking. I spend, on the large days that he's referring to, I spend probably half of my day being the parking place and telling them. I mean, we've really tried to develop a good relationship. It is a problem because there's more, really no matter what the center does, even if we restricted, which we've tried to do that too, there's probably only 2 days a month that we have big events, but and those are principal meetings and coaches meetings. So we've really tried to work with even Vanderbilt and Educators Credit Union to relieve the parking, but the fact of the matter is, just like he said, they're close in proximity and people can park there and walk over. Now, I will spend half of my day trying to find out who's parked there and get them to move.
I had a question, by the way, since you're there. Is there any sort of, well, I guess it's a 2-part question. One part is, when this first came up again in November, I kind of asked for a ballpark on your big days, what your capacity is for attendance at a big event. That's the first part. Second part, is there anything that you guys are looking at in your department to alleviate this from your end, seeing that, I mean, I know you said around 200 on the average.
That's an average.
That's an average. So average 200 people. So you're talking about a potential, 150 or plus cars. That's a lot of vehicles for that neighborhood. Are you all looking at any other options from your end that you could take that'll be a more long-term solution?
I mean, with regard to professional development, we have transitioned to more job embedded, so we go to the school to conduct professional development rather than have teachers come to the center. We do online professional development rather than having people come to the center. But some events, like principals meetings, need to take place in person. And on those days, there are about 400 people at the center. And those days we pass out, we have tags so that they can see the the people that are designated to be with us. And that's a day, when I say 400, that's a day when we've got the principal meetings there and some other events going on. We try to manage that, and we've done a much better job managing that since November. And we'll get even better in restricting the total number of people that are going to be in the center.
And reaching out to resources like, for instance, Vanderbilt and others.
Yes.
I know that came up last time. I believe you had mentioned that at one point that there was maybe some type of shuttle service that was being run.
I've checked into that. That's not going to work out as much as I'd hoped it would work out, but Educators Credit Union is considering us being able to park there. We're also encourage everyone that's in central office to carpool. So if they can park at the Bransford office and carpool over, or sometimes they just drop people off and then circle back and pick them up. But I mean, everyone is aware that it's a challenge, and everyone is trying to work to keep people from having to park on the streets. But there's still that, you know, that person that's going to see it easier to park on the street than park further away on the street.
But well, I've got a motion, so if Commissioner Moore wants to speak, and go ahead. I've got a motion, so.
Oh, I would like to know, I've heard the expression, working with Vanderbilt. What does that mean? Could somebody explain what working with the university is?
Well, as I think a number of people have mentioned, we have in our neighborhood folks who work at Vanderbilt.
Right.
They park at Martin.
As residents, too? They live in the neighborhood?
They are not resident. As far as we know, they are not residents. They park and then they walk to Vanderbilt, or they are construction workers who are working on something at Vanderbilt who park in the neighborhood, walk over to Vanderbilt. We've had medical residents park at Martin, and they get out in their scrubs at 6 in the morning and leave for the day. And I guess Vanderbilt charges for parking. So we have contacted Vanderbilt. In fact, Vanderbilt had a representative at the meeting that Council Lady Allen called, and they were very, they said if they know about it, they will be happy to go after those individuals and make sure that they are being good neighbors as well. But of course, we don't always, sometimes we just see a car there and think it's odd that they're all the time. But you may not connect them to Vanderbilt, and they may not be connected to Vanderbilt. I've seen people park their cars, have a friend pick them up, and they're driving away from Vanderbilt. I don't know why you're parking on a street in our neighborhood to do something outside our neighborhood, but some of that goes on. So,
is there a problem with people parking on the street, Belcourt Street? I mean, there are restaurants there.
I think they have meters there now. Recently were installed. I believe meters were recently installed on Belcourt.
Yeah.
So if you're in a 3-hour.
Back up. Was there a problem before the meters? So people parking on Belcourt. Has anybody contacted the Belcourt Theater about that lot that may be vacant at least half a day? It's a thought. And it's a big lot.
Okay.
Motion to deny the appeal.
I'd like to second that motion to deny the appeal.
Okay. We have a motion and a second to deny the appeal. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Appeal has been denied. Okay. Commission thanks you for being here. We try to work with both parties. We're not magicians. We can't satisfy everyone, but we'll have to do what we think is right. Thank you for coming.
They need to build a parking garage.
Okay, Commissioners, we're going to move on. We're down to our consent agenda. Items on the consent agenda will be voted on at a single time. No individual public hearing will be held, nor will the Commission debate these items unless a member of the audience or the Commission requests that the items be removed from the consent agenda. Let's have order. We're in business. Okay. Consent agenda, Resolution 12-03, authorize all stops on East Fairview Drive at Haynes Park Drive, Ordnance Place at North 17th Street, Pitts Avenue at Clifton, authorized stop signs on Oxford Street at Norval Avenue, Oakfield at Oakfield Grove. There are two items here. Bennerville Drive from Nolensville Pike to Sunnywood and private trucks over 8 tons, Nolensville Pike to Sunnywood. We are deleting those. They will not at this time be a part of the consent agenda. Modified speed limit on Brook Hollow and Davidson Road from 35 miles per hour to 30 miles per hour. This will be the change in the records only. Modified speed limit on Anderson Road from Smith Springs Road to Cashville Pike from 40 miles per hour to 35 miles per hour. And you should have included in your packet reports on the parking and engineering. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
And second?
Second.
Okay. It has been approved. The consent agenda has been approved as amended. Okay. Any comments or from the staff or commissioners? I talked to Mark Macy yesterday. You know, Mark's been absent from us from some with ill health. Mark at this time is doing good, but he's still got a long road to go, and asked me to tell everyone hello and hopes he'll be back soon. Okay. Pardon? Do y'all have anything to say, or?
Thanks.
Okay.
Maybe next time. I think I'm on the agenda today, but it's very similar to what you just heard. So hopefully next agenda.
Okay. Just get with the staff. Is there anything that you want on the agenda?
Okay.
Just get with our staff, and we'll be happy to hear you. Okay. Anything else?
Make a motion to adjourn.
We have a motion to adjourn. What were you going to do?
Nothing. I was just kidding.